Well, the individuals that don't have enough imposter syndrome, it's actually kind of scary when you think about it, especially in the world of social media. Everyone is selling a solution. Everyone is saying they have the answer, the recipe, even with podcasts. And I said to myself, there's no way I could possibly start a consulting company if I didn't at least hit most transactions at least one time in the nation, because why would I be worthy of sharing?
Where you are like, okay, I'm getting a little comfortable. So you know what I'm going to do? Again, sickos.
Yep.
What I'm going to do, I'm going to make myself very uncomfortable.
We share every single thing down to the email written because I believe in giving everything to someone, just like if it was an agent.
Matt Weaver, the #1 mortgage originator in the United States for most loans closed in 2023 and #1 in the state of Florida from 2020 to present, has spent over 27 years mastering the purchase market, earning more than 16 #1 titles across his career. Max Fisch, 2024's #1 originator in the United States under 30 and #2 in the state of Florida, achieved those titles within just 5 years of entering the mortgage industry, compressing decades of growth into a few extraordinary years. Collectively, they've helped more than 40,000 families purchase their first home. Now partners and looking to improve the industry on a national scale, Matt and Max share their winning formula, team structure, and systems with originators who want to scale from elite to extraordinary levels.
We're back.
We're back at it.
As right before we came on, I was looking at these shelves that they had us build. And that's a really nice sign, by the way. It's a great sign.
It's a great sign. They did a great job.
But we had to choose these quotes, and we have a book and a plant, a nice line. That line's from Africa.
Is it?
Yeah.
No kidder.
But I knew you were gonna pick that quote
Yes.
because I hear you say it all the time, and when they told us to pick a quote, I knew that was gonna go up there.
Yes.
And it's a great title to our episode today, which is imposter syndrome. And that term, might rub some people the wrong way.
It's a negative term.
It seems like it.
Yes.
You're talking about imposters, but I'd like for you to share just what does that mean?
Well, I think the world needs more imposter syndrome. I think the world lacks it to a high degree. I've suffered and still to this day suffered with a high degree of imposter syndrome. We spoke about this. I had excellent parents my whole life. My father, of course, is no longer with us. May he rest in peace. My mother is from Greece and just an incredible mother. I could never do anything wrong, but I had a lack of exposure in my life. In other words, I wasn't exposed to too many things, not a whole lot of travel, not a lot of interesting people and so on and so forth that I've met over my life. So that lack of exposure created a lot of imposter syndrome for me that I still carry to this day. What's imposter syndrome? Well, so I vividly remember when I was younger, okay, I would watch, let's say, superstars on TV, actors, athletes, whatever it may be. And I would look at them and there would be a clear divide in my head that was them, that'll never be me. I thought they were something extraordinary. I thought they were something that they were born with. I thought that was something that was not given to me. I didn't think I could hit anything extraordinary like some of these famous people do. Not necessarily just famous, but successful people, etc. So I've suffered with imposter syndrome virtually my whole life. Now, what I've done there is I'm able to take, whether it be imposter syndrome or lack of confidence, maybe some unworthiness issues there, and I've turned those what we would call liabilities into assets in my life. When we think of imposter syndrome, at the end of the day, it's not feeling worthy of. It's not feeling worthy of because you haven't accomplished enough to feel worthy of. That's one of the definitions that can be used, and that's what we'll use here, I guess, for today's episode. So when we think about it, the reason why I say the world needs a little bit more imposter syndrome is because there's too many people trying to push too many things that really haven't done a whole lot themselves. And there's a quote that I live by that I heard several years ago, which is, to inspire someone, you must first become someone. So I really think that that is something that we should all live by, rather than sharing and telling what others should do, even though we haven't done it ourselves, and so, et cetera.
Sure. So would you say, because how I'm understanding that, would you say that that kind of goes hand in hand with a level of humility, imposter syndrome?
I think a level of humility plays a role. Humility is something that we should always and continue to possess throughout our life, depending on, regardless, I should say, of how successful we are, of how of the accomplishments that we've
Sure.
done. We always have to remain humble in what it is that we're doing. There's points and times where you share your statistics and what you've accomplished, but in the right setting.
Sure.
At the end of the day, we're human beings. Okay, we're all just trying to succeed at a high level. But for me, the reason why imposter syndrome was so, I guess, pronounced in my life is going back to that lack of exposure. I think when you aren't around a whole lot of wildly successful people, you can create that divide in your own mind, which is why they always say, try to go around those that are accomplishing more than you. Like as an example, I'll say to my son, he plays basketball. I'll say, make sure you're not the best player on the court. Okay, you want
Yeah.
to be around other players that are better than you. Why? That's exposure. That's how you get better. But if you're always hanging around and palling around with the people that are doing equal to what you're doing, that's just where you're going to remain. And that's where imposter syndrome can keep you at, because now you feel that you can't go around someone who's accomplishing more or better, or at least some of us. Maybe some of us are born with something more intuitive that doesn't feel that way. What hit me like a ton of bricks, I'll never forget it. I was invited to a Douglas Elliman real estate conference in, I want to say, 2014, 15. It was in New Jersey, Atlantic City. And now Douglas Elliman, especially back then, did an incredible job with their award ceremonies, with their national conferences, and so on. So their keynote speaker at the time was Donnie Deutsch. You may know who Donnie Deutsch was. Donnie Deutsch was a really wildly successful, owned an ad agency. I think sold it for a lot of money. But he also had a show on CNBC called The Big Idea. And Donnie would interview world leaders. He would interview some of the most smartest and successful people in the world. And he came out to do a keynote at this Douglas Elliman conference that I was invited to by a dear friend, Mary Sela Katia. And so when he came out, he pulls out this crumbled piece of paper, and he says, I have 20 points that I want to share with everyone here today. And these 20 points are based on my discovery and everyone that I've interviewed, okay, what they all have in common of being uberly successful. So, of course, we're all paying attention. One of the points he got to, Max, he called it a naive sense of entitlement. He said everyone that was wildly successful, what he noticed was they all had a naive sense of entitlement. And everyone's looking at him, including myself, thinking, what is he saying? And then he goes on to say, let me put it to you another way. Every single one of them has the mindset of why not me? Why not me? And I think there's a point in life where something can hit you in a different way. Maybe it's where you are in your life at the time. They always say that, how you heard it, other variables in your life. But when I heard why not me, it hit me, Max, dead in the chest. And it was at that moment I turned to Avi, okay, one of our business partners, and he looked at me, and you could tell it really changed both of our lives right at that moment. In fact, so much so that it gave me the courage when I flew back home, back to Boca Raton. That Monday is what enabled me the confidence to prospect who now is my mentor for the past 10 years, Mike Ferry, to see if I could sponsor some of his events and go on stage with him. I never had the confidence to ever do that, but I figured, why not me?
No, I think, listen, that's awesome. I think there can be a coupling of the two, right? Imposter syndrome and why not me? Because I know for my own life, right? Being a young person in this industry, I know we talked about that before. I can really empathize with originators around the country, because there's that sense of, well, I don't belong in this business. I don't belong in talking to people about the biggest purchase of their career, right? Even though that we're capable, I say we because I know there's many of us out there.
Right.
And that just comes from imposter syndrome. But what it can do is, and at least what it did for me, is it can motivate you because that turns into, well, why not?
Right.
Right? Like, why can't I do that? Right. And so I think there's a healthy balance of both of those mindsets, which is interesting in what I was hearing. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. And again, this is not to pump up your ego, right? But sitting at this table, right, having this conversation with you, there's an ounce of imposter syndrome there, right? Like, what happens is, and I'm sure it's even more for you because it's been so long that you've been in this business, but the last 5 years just kind of like whirls around in your head,
Right.
right? Where you're just like, how did I even like plant here?
Right.
Does that make sense?
Oh, well, it makes a lot of sense, which is why, if you recall, I think after the first few days of us partnering together, I gave you that bracelet that said,
Why not me?
Why
Yeah.
not me?
Yeah.
As a reminder to you, but you're going to get a kick out of this, or at least I think you will. Don't think for a second that after we were talking and knowing that we were going to do something together, my imposter syndrome kicks in. I'm saying to myself, he's actually considering joining me.
Yeah.
So it never goes away if you can treat it as an asset, which then keeps you more humble.
Yep.
It really is something that's extraordinary. It's a superpower that if you do have that syndrome, to embrace it, but channel that energy the right way. Sitting here with you today, you didn't have to merge with me and partner with me.
Yeah.
You were going to win no matter what. Okay.
I'd like to think so.
Well, of course, you know that. Okay. But at the end of the day, that imposter syndrome is kicking in with me all the time. Am I worthy of? Am I worthy of? But that right there, asking myself constantly, am I worthy of, then makes me perform more for you.
Yeah.
And that's the flow that we're looking for always.
It's
So
accountability.
it's accountability at a very high degree.
Yeah. And what's interesting? I just thought of it like imposter syndrome is like this thing in our head that like flares up, like flares up at times and you're like, whoa, what was that? And you know what the common denominator is? Every time it flares up, it means that you're growing.
It means, yeah.
It means that you're growing, right? Because if you think about it, every time that flares up, that means something is happening that you don't feel worthy of or whatever it is. And so I think that's a cool concept, right? Because it's almost like your body's natural trigger that lets you know, oh, wait a second. This is something great.
Well,
this
yeah.
could be something awesome.
You put yourself in an environment that you feel that you're not worthy of. So
Yeah.
that means you're in the right environment.
Exactly.
You put yourself into a situation that you feel you're not worthy of, or around people that you feel you're not worthy of. And so you feel like an imposter. So we talk about it. We were on the road 2 weeks ago, and I remember looking at each other when we were about to step into this one pretty important meeting.
Yeah.
And we both said to ourselves, let's temper down our imposter syndrome here a little bit, because I knew it was flaring on both.
It was either that or the caffeine.
Which is far too much. Okay. Which is far too much. I mean, listen, I'm 16 years on you. Okay. So it takes a lot for me to keep up with your pace.
Well, so it's funny. So to package that up in a bow, would I be correct in saying that imposter syndrome is a sign of growth? Just a blanket statement, right? It's a sign of that you're doing things in your life that are challenging you, that you're put in a situation where not only, hey, I'm making the right choice for growth, but I'm also I have a road ahead that I'm going to need to be on my P's and Q's.
Yeah, if it doesn't rear its head, then perhaps you're an individual that maybe just intuitively it's just not innate in you. But I think more so than not, it's in all of us. And I would say that if you're not feeling that, then I don't think the individual's putting themselves in the environment to feel that.
Yeah.
So I think the more and more we feel it, we're putting ourselves in the right environment to succeed.
Yeah, and I think if you're not feeling it, and this is why you say this all the time, that the world needs more imposter syndrome, right? It's up there. It doesn't just say imposter syndrome. The world needs more of it. And the reason for that is kind of pointing back to, there's all these people that are saying these things that haven't accomplished anything, and especially in our industry and beyond, right? And so the opposite is overconfidence, which, especially for the life of an originator or, again, industry wide, different industries across the country, that can really negatively impact somebody's journey, right? Is that level of, overconfidence in certain situations, or that level of entitlement, even though nothing's been accomplished, or that level of, I always, the say, to combat the saying that you mentioned, I want to be the smartest person in a room,
Right.
right? That concept can really inhibit somebody from reaching their potential because they're never being challenged.
Well, the individuals that don't have enough imposter syndrome, it's actually kind of scary when you think about it, especially in the world of social media. Everyone is selling a solution. Everyone is saying they have the answer, the recipe, even with podcasts, etc. Everyone is saying this and that. And the reality is that most of these individuals haven't really accomplished a whole lot themselves. I'm not saying that to knock anyone. I'm saying that because for those that suffer from a high degree of imposter syndrome, they're going to accomplish greater things before they can come out in an open platform and try and share and help others do greater things.
Sure.
At least that's just how my mindset works. So, like with my children, of course, my son Alexander, he's 14. My daughter Stella, she's 11. And listen, social media, that's just they were raised in this environment, and so it's never going to go away. So I always share with them, kids, you got to check out who you're listening to. Check the references. What have they accomplished themselves? Otherwise, what are we doing right now? Okay. So, again, in this world that we live in of social media, it's really simple to take the wrong piece of advice from an individual who really hasn't accomplished a whole lot themselves. In the origination space, the same thing. How many coaches and gurus enter the mortgage industry saying that they have the answer? Well, if you had the answer, why don't you answer it for yourself? I don't think a lot of people think of it that way. So there are people that really don't have imposter syndrome at all, that are what you're describing as overly confident.
Yeah.
Confidence comes from winning, in my opinion. So the more you continue to win, the more confident you get, because you've earned the right in your own mind to be confident.
Yeah.
But there are some people that have overconfidence, which would then mean, as you're saying, Max, which I think is brilliantly said, that they have the confidence without the wins, is basically what we're talking about,
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah. Well, you know what's interesting? It's this concept of, and it's this dichotomy of, on one hand, you have arrogance, right? Which arrogance is a strong word. If you think about being arrogant,
Oh,
and I'm using that word intentionally. So on one hand, you have arrogance, and on the other hand, you have fear and you have doubt, right? And the fear and doubt is where imposter syndrome leans towards, right?
yes.
Is there a way, and I have some thoughts on this, but I'm interested in what you think. Is there a way that we can use fear as fuel, right?
Without a doubt. When you're afraid of something, it's because it's challenging you.
Yep.
We always want to use that as fuel, okay, in so many different ways. Fear of, I really do believe so many of us deal with unworthiness in terms of, and that falls into imposter syndrome, well, fear, where they are afraid to succeed at a high level. They're afraid of its rewards. That's a real thing. And a lot of people don't really think that way, or think that that's possible, but it is. There's certain income milestones that can be hit, and a lot of people, that's that tipping point where a lot of people can really like lose it mentally.
Yeah.
And end up doing the wrong things, and they make wrong decisions, and all because at the end of the day, most of the time, they don't feel worthy of. They feel like an imposter for making or earning this type of money or this type of success. You see it all the time in acting. You see it all the time as musicians, perhaps athletes, and it happens in our industry on a micro scale as well. So, I think it all connects with one another. And so I think having that imposter syndrome, that humility, okay, keeps us grounded.
Yeah.
Keeps us grounded in everything that we do.
Yeah. I mean, so think about it like this. Fear, how I look at it, is fear is a level of respect for something. You fear something when you respect it. We're not talking about being afraid and cowering.
Right.
Right. But you can have fear because you respect something so much that I'm going to approach this seriously.
Yes.
What happens is that arrogance blinds that, and people approach things sloppy. People approach things in an unserious fashion. And what that does is that affects them at some point down the line, right? Because they're not having the respect that a certain endeavor or a conversation or a presentation, right, deserves.
Correct.
And so when we can approach something with a certain healthy level of fear, that typically lends to, okay, I'm respecting this situation.
Yes.
I'm going to prepare, okay, and I'm going to use this healthy level of fear and respect to tackle this head on,
Yes.
right? So you can go into it at the same time fearing it, but also have the confidence because of preparation.
Correct.
Does that make sense?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, you just hit it on the head. The prime example is, let's just say an agent presentation.
Sure.
Okay. You know that we do probably 120 seminars a year for our great agents. Okay. And we talk about the fact that every presentation is a performance. Every presentation is a performance. So we know that there's no such thing as a small audience, just a small speaker. So we live by the fear and respect of the audience, whether there be 5 agents in the room or whether there be 350 agents in the room, the same preparation takes place. While arrogance would not be prepared, not know their scripts, not know their words, and say, "Oh, I'll just show up and just wing it.
I already know everything.
Yeah, I know it all, and we'll just figure it out along the way." So it's so well put, and they both go. They are the opposite of each other.
Yeah.
And arrogance would definitely be in the danger zone, no question.
Yeah. So it's funny because we're talking about this, and it's almost like you just brought up an example in the origination world, right? Of being a loan officer, but we to package this up for originators,
Right.
right? Because what's so interesting is I feel like in our industry, this either exists or it really doesn't.
Right.
Right? Like there's really no in between.
Correct.
And there's a direct correlation to the longevity of somebody's career and the quality of their relationships of the people that are on this side.
Yeah.
Right? Versus the people in our industry that are on this side. And that doesn't mean, for anybody listening, and this is very important, that doesn't mean that if you find yourself in your habits today to be leaning towards the arrogant side of, I just know everything, the way that I do things is the best, forget listening to anybody else, whatever it is, that doesn't mean that you can bring yourself to a point of humility, right? In a point of, okay, wait, maybe I don't have all the answers.
Right.
Right? Which is part of the reason why we're doing this, right? Because as I'm sitting here, I'm partnered with you. I hang out with you all the time, every day. But as I'm sitting here, I'm learning from the things that you're saying, right? And hopefully vice versa. If we felt like that we knew everything, which by the way, let's sit up for a second. Which by the way, if there was anybody in this industry that could feel like, and I want to make this very clear, that could feel like that they know everything and that they don't need anybody's guidance or help, it's probably the person that's been the top originator in the country. So it lends itself to believe that if you can feel this way, that you're continuously needing to learn, right? And you're continuously needing to get better, and you have a healthy level of fear standing up in front of agents, because I've seen you prepare and you've done it, I don't know, 800 times, right? And stood up but you approach it the same way every time. If you can do that, then anybody in the country can do it. And so for me, I, in my business, obviously I had that healthy level of imposter syndrome. I'd like to think so, because there were a lot of times early on in my career where, say early on in my career, it's 5.5 years, if there's an early on in 5 years, right? But there were times where obviously I didn't feel like I was in the right room, but what I constantly did was I I embraced that feeling.
Right.
Meaning I wanted to feel that constantly, right? And that's part of the reason why we're sitting at this table today, because at the end of the day, if I wasn't feeling that, then I wasn't growing and I wasn't having a certain level of respect for the things that I was doing, a certain level of fear, like we mentioned. I told my wife, she mentioned to me, it's interesting because it seems like, we said in the last episode that we're a little sick in the head.
Yes.
It seems like you're chasing that like uncomfortable feeling, right? You're chasing it. And that right there is what a lot of people don't understand, because what happens is the ego gets in the way. And for me, as I was growing in my career, I'm sitting there thinking, well, on one hand, it's like the angel and the devil on your shoulder. On one hand, uh, you know, I don't need to do anything. I'm serving the community. I'm doing it at a high level. I'm growing year over year. I'm making a good living for my family. But on the other hand, it's, am I, am I being the best that I can be?
Right.
Right. And so as soon as that comfortable feeling starts to creep in, and I'm speaking to every originator, as soon as that comfortable feeling starts to creep in, it might be time for you to put yourself in an uncomfortable situation.
That's exactly right.
Right.
That's exactly right. As an example, this. The highest rating I ever give myself in anything that I do is an 8 out of 10. I'll never give myself a 10.
Yeah.
The 2 is left over for being better and constantly trying to be better.
Yeah.
So we're going to never be, you and I in this journey together, will never be operating at a 10. At best, it's an 8. So if I did, if I had a seminar, tomorrow or yesterday or whenever it was, 150 agents in the room, everyone is laughing and having fun, etc. I mean, at most, I'm going to give myself an 8, but I'm scoring it at around 5.5 to 6, because if we're not constantly improving, okay, in every aspect of our life, then we're not growing.
Yeah.
And there's no one that knows it all. I don't care if I hit number 1 16 more times. Okay. You still have to continue to learn and improve in the industry that you're choosing to be in, which of course we're choosing the wonderful origination industry.
Yeah. And so it really comes down to, if you're feeling that level of uncomfortableness, right? Like that you're in a position to where you're, in a healthy way, you're fearing whatever it is that you're doing, right? Whether that's public speaking or whether that's going and talking to, an agent or walking in or whatever it is. Um, I think that one of the barriers to entry of putting people in an uncomfortable position is the ability to ask questions.
Right.
Right? Which is like, it's such like this easy concept of, hey, like if you don't know, just ask.
Right.
Right? But it's one of this phenomenon, even that we see it in school at a young age, right? Like you ever been, and I was a teacher, but do you remember being in class and the teacher would say, does anybody have any questions? And nobody wants to be the kid that asks the question.
Nobody.
Right? And I never really understood it. I mean, it was just this like unspoken thing, because I felt it too. Like, I don't want to be the kid that doesn't know.
Yeah.
Right? But I think curiosity and asking questions can help get over that hump from uncomfortable to comfortable. And then once you're in that comfortable state, now you need to ask more questions to put yourself into in another environment that tends to ask more questions. I feel like if you're finding yourself not asking questions, it's a problem.
And asking questions with the right people, to the right people.
Yeah.
That's the power of mentorship.
Sure.
That's the power of going back to the world needing more imposter syndrome and be aware of who you're listening to and talking to.
Yeah. Tell us about your mentorship.
Well, okay. So I'll share one thing with you, at least that I share with my kids, and then I can tell you a little bit about mine. I say to my son, Alexander, he loves basketball. He plays travel ball. He plays for his school, so it's great. My daughter plays several different sports, cheerleading, etc. And I always say to them that all you need to do is find a kid that's doing it at a higher level, go and talk to them and ask them, what do they do? What do they do every day? How do they train? Ask for their mentorship. Okay. So for originators, right, find the person that is doing what it is that you're looking to accomplish and ask for their mentorship. But be careful for those that are sharing stuff that really haven't done what you're looking to accomplish.
Sure.
Otherwise, why? One of my mentors, which is Mike Ferry, he's been my mentor for close to 10 years now. In fact, I
You
have,
got a bobblehead.
yep, I have Mike right
Look at
there. Okay. I met him back in 2015.
Uh-huh.
I put together a deal where Finance of America, the company that I was with, became a national sponsor for the Mike Ferry organization. I didn't necessarily do it all the way just for agents. I did it because when I heard Mike speak for the first time, I said, gosh, I mean, it hit me in such a different way that I wanted to learn a little bit more about him. And I wanted to learn a little bit more about all the different things that he spoke about. And I found it so fascinating that he was able to keep agents in the room for 4 days straight, 8 hours a day, only one speaker. And I don't know of another speaker on planet Earth that can keep the same group, thousands and thousands of people in the same room for 4 days straight with only one speaker, never changing.
Yeah.
So I found it fascinating. So after putting this sponsorship deal together and sharing the stage with Mike many times, which was a blessing, of course, I got to know Mike, and of course, he mentors me to this day. So I have a call with him every Monday, and it's about life at this point. It's such a personal relationship that we very rarely talk business. If I was going to go travel to London next week, I would call Mike. He would know the best restaurant or the best place to stay and so on. So, um, you know, look for mentorship in every way. But watch, if you think about it, there's no wonder that I do a lot of seminars now. My mentor does a lot of seminars still to this day. God bless, he's 80 years old. So that's the power of mentorship and exposure. I'll never forget the first time I went on his stage. I mean, there was 4,000 agents in the room. 4,000, Max. Biggest group I've ever been in front of. I mean, talk about fear.
Yeah.
That's a lot of fear.
I was just about to say, it was probably uncomfortable for you to get into the seminar.
Extraordinarily.
Yeah.
Extraordinarily uncomfortable. I mean, the one of the biggest fears is public speaking. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to conquer that fear, but the way we conquer that fear is we show it respect. Just
Show
like how you
respect.
mentioned.
There it is.
Okay, and the respect is to be prepared. Mike taught me the power of scripting, which this industry, both the real estate industry, the mortgage industry, they get so shy about that word scripting as if it's unauthentic or doesn't seem real or stuff like that. Every professional athlete, every professional actor, you name it, everyone, every restaurant, everyone follows a scripted process. It's not that it's unauthentic, it just is consistent. It's organized thoughts here, so you can go from here and deliver what it is that you're looking to accomplish. So whether they're bullet points and so on. Well, here, look, there are bullet points in front of us right here.
Yeah.
This is a script, which is what the audience deserves. They deserve organization.
So what's interesting is you're talking about your mentor.
Yes.
Right. One of the obviously he's been a top real estate coach in the country for 50 years.
Correct.
Right. And you obviously have been the top originator in the country. And what's funny about that is that for originators listening, Mike was not in mortgage.
No.
And what's funny is that I feel like a lot of times people lose sight of the fact. And I've said this before. I said it in the last episode. I've said this, a bunch of times personally. You've heard me say it, that we are in the people business. Work on personal development.
Yes.
Right? Because your health, mentally, emotionally, physically, the better that you can develop as an individual in all those three facets, the better that your business is going to be. Right? In everything, the better leader you're going to be, the better person you're going to be relationally, right? And the list goes on and on. And so what's interesting is when people look for mentors, they're like, It's like analysis, it's like paralysis by analysis, however that saying goes.
Yeah.
I think I hope I
You said it right. Yeah.
Liar. It's almost like I have to find a mentor that likes all the same things as me and does all the same things and is in the same industry. Find somebody that's going to pour into you as an individual,
Thus.
right? And that will lend itself to success in other areas. But what's so cool about what we're doing here for the origination community, and this is what I think is cool about it, is, obviously it's unorthodox, right? We've talked about that. And then myself accelerating my business to a point where I was one of the top originators, you being a top originator for a long time. What we're doing is we're opening this up for people, right? And if you're out there listening, we're opening this up for people to say, hey, let's talk about this. Let's talk about my life, right? Let's talk about how you've been able to integrate different stages of your life alongside this business in this industry. Let's talk about ways that we can make that better. And that's huge. And the funny part about it is that the only reason why people wouldn't reach out and talk to us is the same reason why I wouldn't have partnered with you.
Yeah, that's right. 3 letters.
Right?
3
And
letters.
it is ego and arrogance, right? And so I encourage people to have these conversations, right? Because what it does is it helps with growth, but it also helps be able to manage the the obstacles that'll come up. And two of those biggest obstacles is when you've accomplished anything, you're going to face a crossroad, right? You're going to face that crossroad where it's I can go right and become this arrogant person, right? We're on air, so keep it. Become this arrogant person, or I can go left, have a sense of imposter syndrome, a sense of humility, and understand that there's so much for me more to learn,
Correct.
right? And even somebody like Mike, who's been around for 50 years, he had a lot of mentors, right? That you've told me about, and a list, and it goes on, and now you're passing it along, which I just think it's awesome. I'm happy to be a part of that because it's a really cool thing.
No question. And you talk about humility. We talk about F13 Consulting. When I'll never forget it. I was asked from several originators, "Hey Matt, would you consider coaching me? Would you consider training me and training with me and sharing what it is that you do and so on?" This was several years ago, and my imposter syndrome kicked in, even though I was still hitting extraordinary numbers.
Yeah.
Maybe I got ranked number, maybe I got number 1, 2 or 3 times in the state of Florida. But I didn't get it in the nation. And I said to myself, there's no way I could possibly start a consulting company if I didn't at least hit most transactions at least one time in the nation, because why would I be worthy of sharing? That's how severe, I'll say, my imposter syndrome is. I'm not recommending that for everyone, but it's just the way that I operate. So over the years, when people would ask me, "Hey, Matt, would you train me? Would you coach me?" I declined it, only until I was able to hit it myself at an even higher level. So it was, you'll find this interesting. It was in 2023 where I was able to secure most closed units in the nation up against all originators. And it was at that moment that I was comfortable with, we'll say, giving birth to F13, which is known as Flaw 13 Consulting, which today has 35 extraordinary members. And talk about members that have checked their ego at the door. They're extraordinary people. They do big numbers, but they're also filled with humility. And what's so fascinating is we have them overcoming their fears. We have them presenting in front of agents, doing their own seminars at an extraordinary level. And it's so fun to grow with them and to see all the changes they've made with their process, etc. But I never would have been able to ever do that or take one single phone call unless I was able to hit number 1 myself. In fact, on our site, Think 13, okay, it says the world needs more imposter syndrome. So I hit it right there in terms of being worthy of, but I still am at the game, still trying to hit it as hard as possible, because you see, I'm consulting them on how to beat me.
Yeah.
And the reality is that I got to still beat them. And what's fascinating and what the members found so interesting is that we share every single thing down to the email written, because I believe in giving everything to someone, just like if it was an agent. Okay, we always want to give value higher than what they expect, and we're here today, and it's a really fun situation, and you're part of it now. You see how fun that can be.
Yeah. What's cool is that, yeah, I don't even think you're doing this. But what's cool is you're doing exactly what we were talking about, which is there was probably a moment for you in 2023 when you reached the most closed units in the country where you were like, okay, I'm getting a little comfortable. So you know what I'm going to do? Again, sickos.
Yeah.
What I'm going to do? I'm going to make myself very uncomfortable by telling everybody exactly what I'm doing.
Correct. Correct. Well,
If you think about it.
Yeah, if you think about it. So from 2010, when I wanted to build out the team structure and the process flow, I went from 2010 through 2023. Max, I didn't speak to a single originator for 13 years. You were either on my team or you weren't on my team.
Yeah.
And if you weren't on my team, you were a competitor. It was just that simple. No, nothing against anyone. It's just that's the way that my mindset is. I mean, we're here to win.
Yeah.
So you're right. The 2023 accomplishment took place, and what I wanted to do is start sharing everything. I mean, giving an entire blueprint plan, which is highly uncomfortable for me, but I forced myself into getting comfortable.
Yeah.
And here we are today. So if you were to take a look, we were always really fast at creating new things. But if you take a look at the last, we'll say 24 months, I think my team, our team together now, our operations team, our marketing team, our levels of seminars, etc., are producing faster than they ever have before. So the little trick on our minds are working.
Yeah, I think it's just once you get to the top, like what's going to continue to motivate you, right? And I think one of the strong motivators is imposter syndrome,
You better believe it.
right? Because if you don't have that when you're at the top and you make it, like, what are you left to accomplish? What do you do?
That's exactly right.
It's that, my dad and I know we're getting to the end here, but my dad used to tell me, I used to run in, I used to be like, he taught me how to weight train. Right.
Yeah.
And I would run in and I would tell him, oh, I can bench press more than all my friends. Right. And he would tell me, Max, there's always somebody stronger. And psychologically, I don't even know if my dad's ever even heard of imposter syndrome, but psychologically what he was doing was reminding me there's always a next level, right? There's always a next level. And you have to respect it, and you have to continue to try to get better.
Yes.
Because being better than, being stronger on bench press than all of your friends, is that your ultimate goal?
Right.
Right? Is that your ultimate goal? And I think originators have to face that reality, right? Like what's your goal? Do you want to continue to grow? And if you do, do you have a healthy level of fear? And are you respecting that fear and that endeavor? And I think that really sums up imposter syndrome in its entirety, and you just being so open to share with originators around the country and bringing me in on that journey to be able to share my story. I think that embodies the next step,
That's right.
next level.
It really does.
Right? And so I appreciate you going through that, and that'll be left up there.
Here's to imposter
It's a
syndrome.
good reminder.
That's right.
Yeah.